Hi, I'm Jeremy Vaughn Clark, and this is the Rise Point Podcast, where potential meets presence. I'm a speaker, coach, and author, and I help individuals go from invisible to undeniable and rise to the point that the world can't afford to overlook. Because I believe we all have a rise point, the moment where hiding is no longer an option and rising is the only way forward. And this podcast is all about finding your rise point. Today, I want to talk about how to be successful through the choices that we make. There's a version of you before you make a choice, and there's a version of you after you make a choice. The version of you before you make a choice is always the one that's eager, that's hungry, that's curious. The version of you that appears after we make a choice is all depending on what that choice was. So that version after a choice is either overjoyed, satisfied, or remorseful, or regretful, depending on what that choice is. It's important to understand there are two versions of you right now. When you look back at your life, there are things you're going to say to yourself, if I would have known that when I was 5 or when I was 10 or when I was 15 or when I was 18, 21, I would have done X, Y, and Z differently. And that's because you're coming from a lens of where you are now, based on what you know now. And where you are now is nowhere near where you're going to be. So you have to be very intentional about that future self. Your future self right now is looking at you and is wondering why you aren't doing a particular thing that they already did, that unlocked for them to get to the level that where they're at. It's important to understand, to be intentional and successful with your choices, that your choices have to be, in a sense, slowed down in real time to understand what could and could not happen based on your current choice and what that may be. Choices in life are one of the most important things that we have, because we have all the power within the choices that we make. So you have to understand that within the choices that we make, we have the power to either help our futures or hurt our futures. But no matter which happens, whether you help or you hurt it, you have to understand that you must keep going no matter what, and you have to have accountability for the choices that you made. When I started having accountability for the choices that I make, I had to start slowing down myself. I had to start realizing that my next move can either help or hurt me. And I had to think carefully about which move that was. What did I want to do when I was faced with a decision that could either elevate me or send me backwards? What I realized was I have power within my decisions. And because I have power within my decisions, I'm able to start manipulating my future in a way that works to my benefit. Now, I'm not saying everything's going to work in your favor when you start to be more intentional with your choices, but what I am saying is when you're more intentional with your choices, your future starts to shape up in a way that you see fit. You may be thinking, well, what can I do when something happens to me that I can't control? Well, what you can control is how you react to the things that hit you that had nothing to do with your cause and effect. But you have all the power in the world to make the next thing happen, whatever that may be. And that's been an episode of the Rise Point Podcast. This is Jeremy Vaughn Clark. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, comment, and move on to the next episode. Peace.